Ons het vandag die voorreg om te gesels met die aktivis, die skrywer, aspirantkandidaat vir Build One South Africa, met Ayanda Allie. Sy kuier vanmôre hier by ons. Ons gaan haar 'n bietjie beter leer ken. Ons gaan hoor waarvoor sy staan en ons gaan hoor wat dryf haar en waar sy vandaan kom. Good morning, Ayanda.
Goeiemôre, hoe gaan dit?
Lovely. That's all Afrikaans people need. It's just one line. That's lovely.
Thanks so much for having me, Pierre. Thank you, Francia. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Hello, it's lovely having you. Ayanda, before we get to who you are now and what everybody saw on the E-News segment, because we want to talk about that especially, let's find out about Ayanda. Grew up in Dobsonville. Tell us about growing up. Tell us about where did your passion for, I'm not going to say the public eye, but your passion for being out there and putting yourself out there start? Where did you realize I have to be in the public eye to make a difference?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just that strong sense of justice that one has that forces you to say something when you see something. I grew up in Dobsonville, you're quite right, and I went to school in the suburbs of Constantia Kloof, Allen Glen, and so I grew up with this dichotomy, right? There's the dusty streets of Soweto, you go in 1-2 taxis, and all of a sudden you're in a leafy suburb. So as a child, you begin to see that things are just not as they should be. There's inequality, there's inequity here. You don't know what to call it because you don't have the vocabulary at that age, but it stays with you. And I think for me, you know, after going through primary school, I go to high school, so vocal was I that I was elected deputy head girl. So I think maybe that's where some of the leadership came in. Went to varsity, studied journalism because I feel that media and communication as the fourth estate has a role to play to really sound the alarm and saying, let's fix this country. So after being a journalist for a couple of years, I went to community level and started an organization called Bukubami Youth Center in Soweto. We've been running for 9 years now, providing after-school care facilities to under-resourced communities, senior high school learners. So it's always been there. By the time I went to government, where I worked for the spokesperson, I worked as the spokesperson, I should say, for Minister Fikile Mbalula in transport, I had already had such a passion for this country, strong sense of justice, really had a desire to make a difference. And then I think that's what landed me to politics. After government, I went back to school, did my master's, did a couple of projects. One was an album about community building, social cohesion. And then there was also a book called How to Save a Life about social entrepreneurs. So all the things I did and who I am, I really think funneled me to the place where I find myself now in Build One South Africa, where I'm now saying I want to join people who are active citizens who are trying to be the change they want to see in their community. And this is now my political home.
Ayanda, you alluded to the fact that you have a book, you're a writer, you have an album. You're a master of so many skills, and it's so great to see that in the book you talk about change makers. You talk about making a difference there where you are, where you see you can make a difference, about actively doing it and not being apathetic to other people's plight. Being part of a BOSA now, making most people would say it's more of a movement than a party. It's about being on grassroots level, being in communities and making a difference, as you've been doing with your early learning center that you're supporting for quite some time now. Making that difference. Are you seeing people joining in the fight? Are you seeing people making that change from the inside or the outside?
Look, it's absolutely incredible. I think we underestimate just how passionate South Africans are, how caring, how loving, how giving we are. Being face to face with so many activists who are in different spheres of society. Some are making a difference in academia, others are in the health profession, others are in education, others are in the legal fraternity, in broadcasting, you name it. It really opened my eyes to the fact that we have what it takes as South Africa to be a formidable country, to be an incredible state, and we have what it takes to grow the economy even much larger than it is at the moment. We really have what it takes to be among the best in the world because we have the people and the resources, right? But the problem is that at the helm, we need to have people who understand that, who can tap into the energy of people on the ground, who people can trust, who people can say, you can lead us into the future that we desire. All the elements, the ingredients are there. And I think think that's why my strongest view, that came out of that clip that you alluded to earlier, was that we should not measure ourselves against developed countries or even developing countries. We should measure ourselves against our own potential. And being on the ground through BOSA and seeing some of the other candidates, I've seen the limitless potential that we have as South Africa. And I think that's what frustrated me and really made me think, no, we have to do something. We have to come together. I have to try my hand at politics, which is something that's relatively new for me. But I have to do at least something. We owe it to ourselves as South Africans to join hands, to unite, and to fight for this beautiful country, man.
Ayanda, but you are such an all-rounder, if I can put it like that. I mean, you've done it all, singing and writing and activist and whatever, spokesperson in government. Where did you learn most about life? If you can perhaps, I mean, you've done it all over the years. Where did you learn more about life in itself?
I think I am the product of my community. I really am the sum total of everything and everyone I grew up around. From the moment I leave my house, firstly, of course, the home background shapes you. But when you leave the house, I used to walk towards the stop sign to take a taxi, and you would pass by a gogo who's selling some snacks and chips and biscuits, and she's making a noise and shouting and rebuking some of the kids in the streets. Hey, when I listen, when I don't throw stones. You get into the taxi, you see just, ordinary South Africans going about their life, trying to get to work safely, trying to pay bills. You then, interact with people at school from different races, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic condition. All of that really shapes you. As a journalist, you crisscross the length and breadth of this South Africa. I mean, I went to a place called Kakamas in the Northern Cape. Never have I ever in my life, growing up in Dobsonville, even thought there was a place like that. Beautiful people. They really impact who you are. Leaders in the upper echelons of society, clergy, pastors. All of that, I really think, is used to shape the individual, to make you question what you believe, to correct you sometimes when you're wrong, but to also affirm sometimes the sense of justice that you have. Yeah. So I don't have one place where I say I learned everything here. I think everything that I have experienced in life contributed to even that address or the response to the State of the Nation address.
Ayanda, it's so beautiful to hear, and it just reminds us once again that we all have different points of reference.
Exactly.
We are all so diverse, and being able, like you say, to be open to other people's opinions and other people's, whether it's like yours or not, but you have your value system. Speaking about value system, what role does faith play in your life, for instance? Tell us more about that.
My faith is everything. I'm a born-again believer. I'm a Christian. I'm a child of God. And I think the ethos of that is love. You cannot call yourself a believer and not love. And the true test or true definition of love is being able to love those who you deem are unworthy of your love. Because it's easy for you to love somebody who thinks like you, who feels like you, who looks like you. But if you're able to extend love to people who perhaps have a different point of view, who see the world differently, that I think is the true test. And a lot of people who say faith and religion and politics should not merge, I think are coming from a reference where faith has been used to oppress people, where faith has been used to divide people, and where faith has been used against people in violent ways. And I think it's time for us to look at it differently and say, even Christ, when he walked the earth, would present something to someone and say, follow me. But that person had a decision whether or not they wanted to follow. And if they chose not to follow, he would not hold it against them. And in fact, even on the cross, when he died, he didn't say, I'm just going to die for those who believe and see and feel and think like me. I'm going to die for everybody. So I'm preaching a little bit here, but I feel that, South Africans need to know that when BOSA is in charge, if I ever get any elected position, it will not be one where you force people to see the things that you see or believe what you believe, but it will be one of kindness, of ethics. It will be one of good morals. It will be one that opens up for anybody to feel, think, and believe what they will, and hopefully use all the common threads that tie us together to build a South Africa that works. Because I'm of the view that whether you're Muslim, whether you're a Jew, whether you're a Christian, whatever you believe, African tradition, all of us want a South Africa that works. That's the common thread that ties us together.
Sure.
Ayanda, just to sum up, we've got like a minute left. What do you say to the naysayers who say we'll never be the rainbow nation again? Our first election was in our first democratic election, and I thought, I love the rainbow nation. I'm going to be part of it, and the country has almost lost that passion for that Madiba era. What do you say to the people who tell you that that'll never happen again? We're divisive and we're pulling each other apart and we're going back to the old horrible ways. What would you say?
I would say it always seems impossible until it's done. I think the only things that divide us are situations that force us to fend for ourselves. The only reason why we have xenophobic violence in South Africa is because people in communities are fighting over scarce resources. We turn on each other when that happens and we start fighting one another instead of fighting the leaders that put us in positions where we have to scramble for crumbs. And in the black-white scenario, same thing. We only fight among each other because we start to see each other as a threat. This one is corrupt. This one is trying to take what is mine. This one I don't trust. This one I don't believe. If we get a leadership that is able to bring social cohesion in an equitable and just manner, people that we can trust, we can have those ideals of the Rainbow Nation back. We've proven that we've done it before. We can do it again. So I think it's all in the leadership. You remember under Udadu Madiba when they said he should not, be on the rugby field wearing the Springbok regalia because it's a symbol of 1, 2, and 3. He broke those stereotypes. And I believe we can break those stereotypes and we can work together. We see it among our children who are mingling freely among each other. It is possible with the right leadership at the helm that unites as opposed to dividing. And something that we can all believe in as a country, we can have that Rainbow Nation come to pass in truth and in reality.
It brings us back to the unity in diversity, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what it's about. I'm a firm believer that we can have that unity in diversity. When we have more time next time, we'll bring you up to speed with my family and the different dynamics that we have, how we believe differently, how we even have different skin color, different racial backgrounds, and we're all part of my family. And this is literally my bloodline. When we have time next time, when you invite me, we'll have that discussion.
Recently, we referred to the video clip in news where you openly asked, Mr. President, where's those bullet trains that you promised? Where are the houses in Alexandra, among other things, that you promised? It's about speaking truth to power. It's about standing up to the leaders, like you say, getting the right leaders in the right positions, because without leaders, we're not going anywhere. What is BOSA's plan in this election? What are you aiming for?
I think key among what we're trying to do is put a job in every home. We still have homes in South Africa where not a single adult is working, where they're depending on social grants, where the tension and the frustration then flares, the breakdown in the family dynamic as a result, and people who are not living in dignified spaces with meaningful and gainful employment. If we can make sure that we grow the economy and everybody has got an opportunity to find work, I think that's half the battle won. How are we going to do this? We're going to make sure that we reform education to build a young person who is able to not only find employment and be employable, but also able to create employment. And I think that's so important in our syllabus, to be able to say, how do we create the South Africans that are going to be economic contributors in the future? We're going to do this by also ensuring safety and security. How are you going to grow the economy when people are having to spend extra resources trying to secure their premises, trying to make sure that there's security guards and the rest? People don't want to invest in an environment where they feel that their assets are under threat. We make sure that infrastructure is up to standard. Load shedding is a huge problem when it comes to growing the economy, but also things like roads and water and other infrastructure that need to be in place for us to have a thriving economy. We also want to stimulate the township economy. We feel that there's a lot of untapped potential in some of these areas that we need to look into, whether it's rural areas and township areas. So we need to make sure that we put a job in every home to give people a sense of dignity, to give people a sense of unity. When you are clothed and you have food and you have shelter, it's easier to look at the next person as a friend as opposed to a foe.
Absolutely. Ayanda, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been lovely chatting to you. Best of luck. And we are following you and we're looking at what you're doing as an activist because it's inspirational. And thank you for showing a little bit of that inspiration with us this morning.
Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Totsiens.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
Dit's Ayanda Allie. Wat 'n lekker gesprek. Sy's natuurlik 'n aktivis. Sy's 'n skrywer, musikant, aspirant, kandidaat vir Build One South Africa, 'n aanbieder, 'n lekker bol, lekker goeie saam op een slag.
En
ons
sy's 'n
word-
mamma, né?
En sy's 'n mamma.
Ja.
En sy's 'n mamma. Punte. Nou ja.
Sjoe.